Let's check if we're live. Check really quick. It is connecting. Okay, we are live. Awesome. So, yes, we are back again to talk about The Wheel of Time, Book 8. This is The Path of Daggers. And this is part 2 of 3 that we'll be covering from chapters 9 to 20. And today we got Tristram here with us. And possibly Andrew. We never know. He might come in, he may come in, he may not come in. But yeah, either way, it's all good. He's always welcome. He just has terrible issues with, I guess,
Sleep.
sleep. Yeah, I guess sleep is his deal. But yeah, if he comes in, great. If he's not, still great. Show will go on. But wow, I even started this without even pulling up my notes. But I think I got it already pre-pinned here. And I do. So we're going to start with chapter 10. We left off at chapter 9. This is chapter 10 of The Path of Daggers. So we're going back and we're getting Perrin, a point of view from Perrin's perspective. I really like this chapter. I thought it was interesting because this is Perrin and his cohort, and we get to see how Perrin handles responsibility. He's very much like the rest of the boys, except Rand. I think Rand has completely and totally accepted his role as a leader.
Yeah.
Um, I think Matt, at least ability-wise, has accepted that role. He still doesn't really like to be called a lord, but of the three men, I believe Perrin is the latest to accept his
Yeah.
leadership role.
And with Perrin as well, I think like with Matt, the thing that kind of pulls him in is his men, right? That he starts to feel like he's properly one of the Red Hand before he accepts the kind of like Lord and being the Prince of Ravens. Whereas like uh Rand has accepted he's the dragon. The thing with Perrin is it requires his wife to make the change for him because in the end, Perrin just sees himself as just a good man trying to make his way in the world, and it's not. I don't think. I think in some ways, without Fael, he never becomes a lord as such because he would have just constantly avoided it. And a lot of people, a lot of readers have problems with Fael. One of the things she definitely can take credit for is making Perrin, forcing Perrin to become a leader.
I think it's just Fael saw those qualities in him and really wanted to push him hard. And I think
Yeah,
that's kind of what, a good significant other is supposed to do. Like,
yeah,
see your strengths and try to push you towards those strengths.
yeah.
I'm not a Fael hater.
No,
I know there are. I
there are
know there
some big
are
haters.
some.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not one because I actually see their relationship as being extremely realistic.
Yep.
Um, it's just when I see them, they seem to be the most. They seem to have the most real relationship in the book. Like couples argue.
Yeah, they really do. One of the
Yeah,
things I think, in many ways, I think Jordan put a little bit of himself and his wife into it. Well, and he said so in one of his interviews. He said that every woman in the Wheel of Time has an aspect of something he'd noticed in his own wife, and I think you can just see that, like that point of, I want you to stand up to me. I want you. I want to be able to be fully myself, and you to be fully yourself, and neither of us gets walked over. And I totally appreciate that because in my own relationship, I often find that if I go full on, I just I run the risk of just running ramshod over my what my wife wants to do. And so I end up
Mm,
thinking, I don't know if I can really fully express how much I want this, because if I do, I might just get my own way, even if it's not the right thing. So I
mm,
understand like that desire that Fail has, like, you know, don't just let me have my own way. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I want you to be strong because that gives me permission to be strong.
mm.
And so I absolutely don't hate Fail. I think it is good. And one of the things I like about Jordan is I don't think Jordan at any point says, "Behold the ideal relationship." What he does is he gives us a plethora of relationships, from Naive and Lan to the sort of Ruark and the way the Aiel do it, and Rand's relationship and Matt's relationship, and he shows us a bunch and says you can pick what you think is good. There is no just like perfect relationship, and I think that's very wise.
Yeah, so this rolls into the beginning of the chapter.
Yeah, sorry, I got sidetracked.
No, no problem at all, because this is very relevant to the beginning of the chapter. So, um, in the beginning of the chapter, Gaul walks somebody to Perrin that he found in the woods, and it happens to be Elias. He
Yay!
was he was the man who pointed out the wolf abilities in Perrin,
Yeah.
and he's back, and so they have a little chat together. Uh, One of the highlights of the chat is actually their discussion of Fael and Saldean women in general. So uh, he tells Perrin, like, you need to be very stern and rough, and Saldean women actually expect you to yell at them.
Yeah, don't be meek.
Yeah, and it's funny too because Fael really pushes him to not be meek.
Yep, she does. Agreed.
It's a cultural, it's kind of their cultural upbringing
Yep.
where being meek is not really something looked that's looked greatly upon. So she kind of forces him into this role because her culture kind of demands it.
It's what she expects in, like, we all have that, right? That we're all programmed to an extent to expect certain things or to find certain things attractive. And like in our culture, we've made things like charm or wit is supposed to be attractive, and certain physical shapes have been, a man, if a man is muscular, it's considered attractive and interesting. And so in Saldia, it's just a different kind of take. That one of the things that they've been built up, and so she's grown up her whole life dreaming about one day having a guy, and the guy she's been dreaming of, that her culture's taught her to dream of, is a powerful, strong man who will, be in command. And so then she's married this guy who she thinks is amazing, but she's found that he just won't do that thing that she keeps thinking he should be doing, that she's built up in her whole idea of her life.
Okay, so we just got a message from Andrew. Just letting you guys know. He says that he'll be in within the next 30 minutes. He was mowing the lawn.
All right. Well, he'll be here for the end then. Let's crack on. But can I just say one thing about Elias as well? I think Elias Makara is one of the coolest characters, and I do think, if I can offer a slight criticism, I think he's underused by Jordan. He turns up books and books ago, then he just disappears, doesn't come into it again for ages. I like everything with him in. I wish he'd been a bigger character. I think his backstory about him, having been a warder and like discovering himself as a wolf brother, I think that just could have been super, super interesting. And there's other characters that I think are less interesting that we get a lot more of. And I would have loved more Elias, as a personal taste issue. But I think he's a fantastic character who does not get enough time in these books.
Yeah, I do get why he doesn't show up too much because when we first meet him, we are given the sense that he is some type of nomadic loner
Yeah, that's
that
exactly true.
that doesn't travel. Like he does travel with some of the Tinkers for a time,
but
But
never for
even
long.
when the Tinkers are like, "Yeah, stay with us, come with
Nope.
us," he's like, "Nope, I'm going off on my own."
Mm.
So yeah, he's kind of that outcast from society. He doesn't spend too much time with
Yeah.
even smaller groups of people. So, um, and
Yep.
he's on
So
the run too. It's not like he's can be totally transparent because he did kill some warders and he's not off scot free.
yeah.
So he kind of has to stay a bit in the shadows in order, just to survive.
Mm.
But yeah, Elias definitely a cool character. So one of the things that this leads up to is Perrin has this conversation with the current queen of
Of Geldon.
yeah. So Gildon is currently a country. She's basically a puppet at this moment, right? Kind
Yeah.
of a puppet to the prophet.
Yeah, because Gildan's a tiny country, and the Prophet basically has gathered so much support that
Hmm.
his rabble, if you like, is so huge that if Gildan tried to kick them out, if they act their own people would overthrow them. So she's playing a very delicate game where she's working with the Prophet, but with the kind of understanding that if they deliberately tried to oust him, her military could not handle what he's got.
Yeah, and we do see that she's basically acting as she's been taken hostage and she's kind of under duress. She's not really interested in furthering the prophet's power, and
Yeah, she
she's
feels trapped.
basically doing what she needs to do to survive.
Yeah.
Considering, I believe, the previous queen or ruler, monarch of Gildon was killed, I believe, by the prophet. Isn't that correct?
I I don't remember that, but it could be. It's been too long since I read it.
Yeah, that's way
If you
back
read it,
in book
you
five,
reread
I
it,
think.
yeah. But the prophet's been very very powerful on here. But anyway, one of the key points that we need to get to with this conversation is that that like
He
it
doesn't treat her like a queen.
no, but he also doesn't treat her like dirt.
No.
And so what she realizes is this guy represents the dragon, which I
Hmm.
have to go along with because clearly I'm a smaller piece. But he is not a psycho. Like he's like Perrin is as far from the way the prophet acts as it's possible to be, and so
Oh
she's
yeah.
like, this is my chance to be clearly not against the dragon, which would lead to my death, but also like get out from under the prophet's control. And so in a Tadverin moment, she just
Hmm.
pledges her loyalty. So like Perrin, who's like, I'm not a lord, or still trying to avoid that whole thing. And then this
Hmm.
queen pledges her allegiance to him, like just like that.
Right. There's like a weird kind of comparison between Perrin and the prophet
Mm.
Massima, because Massima definitely dresses like he spends all of his time living in the back of a dumpster.
He's deliberately wants to seem to be like a peasant, like one of the people.
But he's extremely arrogant.
Oh yeah, and he's crazy.
Yeah, and he's crazy. Um, and then we got Perrin, who has all the amenities that somebody of his stature would have, except he really just wants to be a common person.
Mm,
So we kind of have that weird dichotomy. We have Massima, who dresses like a hobo, but uses his power in obscene means.
mm,
Um, and then we have Perrin, who does kind of the opposite. Yes, there are some times when Perrin has to use his authority for the purposes of justice,
mm-hmm,
but um, in our cultural context, his justice jives more with us than Massima's version of justice, which
Is just
seems
killing people.
arbitrary. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
seems pretty arbitrary. There's no rhyme and reason to it.
And we see them like a lot of this book actually is going to be the two of their different views coming up against each other. And like right
Right.
at the beginning, like they find some of the prophet's men. And remember, Perrin has to handle the prophet carefully. That's his mission, is to bring the prophet into the fold. But he
That's what he's
finds
trying, yes.
that the prophet's men are just like killing people, right? And like
Right.
no one can tell them no. That's why the queen's like in fear. And but
Hmm.
Perrin, you just said Perrin represents a level of justice. He's the hammer, he's the judge in some ways, but the judge of he's also like the jury, like he's the common man, not the lawyer, the regular peer. And what Perrin does is he hangs them, if I remember correctly. Like he says, "Oh, we're the prophet's men." Yeah, but what you've done is unacceptable, and he hangs them, which risks potentially blowing the whole mission. But he's like, but Perrin has an understanding of justice and fairness that he is not going to give up. He has a moral code.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah,
And he has probably the strictest moral code of the three
I would
um,
agree.
boys. Yeah.
Yeah, full
So,
on.
so the conversation progresses, and she completely swears fealty to
Hmm.
Perrin.
Yep, 100%.
Um, so she is completely loyal. She gets on her knees before him
Yep,
and um, pledges fealty.
yep.
So,
And really, by doing so, she's pledged all of her country. She isn't fully in control of it at the moment, but theoretically, that's how the feudal system works, right?
yeah,
So it's a big
completely.
deal. Like Perrin's kind of by stealth becoming the leader of several countries.
Right. Um, because he is the dragon's will by proxy.
He is. But she
So,
says to him, right? And so it's through him to Rand, obviously, but still, she does it to Perrin.
yeah, there's a lot of confusion too, not amongst us as readers, but in the world of Randland, we got two competing powers in the area saying that they're doing the Lord Dragon's will. Well,
Yeah,
actually, Massima is explicitly saying that.
yeah,
Um, but yes, there's a bit of confusion. I know even the Aes Sedai are confused about those who call themselves Dragon Sworn
yeah,
and kind of say, oh, yeah, the Band of the Red Hand, those are Dragon Sworn. But that's not really the case.
yeah. It's
But
weird.
yeah, there's a lot of confusion there. And it's expected, this is a medieval-esque time where you don't have super reliable sources of information pumped at you, but it is what it is. It would be a confusing time. Um, so we switch into Fael's view. It's just a kind of a short chapter.
Yeah.
It's short where her and Berlane have a conversation,
Hmm.
and I know we have Chafael. Those are.
Oh,
How would you describe the Chafael?
oh. So
Like wannabe,
yeah, they're trying
like
to
a wannabe
create
Aiel society, right?
a warrior society that mimics the Aiel system. Because what's happened now is that they've seen, and in many ways, the Carine, by being defeated just every time by the Aiel, have started to idealize the Aiel. And so they want to be like them, but they can't get into Aiel say, so they founded their own. And they see they want something to idealize, something to protect, something to stand for. And obviously there is no noble who'll let them do that. So Fael's like, I'll use you, no problem. And so they've decided to put themselves around her. One of the important things, though, I think, is Fail has this level of nobility and leadership, but also this warrior woman, right? And so one of the
Hmm.
things that we find in the Shafail is women warriors, women who want to be seen as warriors when they've seen the Maidens of the Spear. And so
Hmm.
they're like, we want that. And so that's, I think, one of the reasons that they attach themselves specifically to Fail and that she kind of takes them under her wing. But the Aiel just don't understand why they're doing it. They're just like, this is stupid. Like, yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah, I totally understand that. Like, Fail is not um like your dainty
no,
noble
not at all.
woman. She she was a
Hunter,
hunter for the horn. She
mm,
knows how to fight. She's been in fights, and she's kind of leading the pack where it comes to elevating women warriors
correct.
in Randland at least.
But that's
Uh,
exactly what these people are doing, right? They see it across the mountains and they're like, we want to emulate that thing over there, but there's no one on this side of the mountains that behaves like that. Fael's
yeah,
closest thing.
yeah. So she got her warrior society
Yep,
that are, and it's respectable. Like they're saying something that they admire, and they're trying to emulate it.
agreed.
But the the Aiel look at it and they're like disgusted by it.
Yeah. It just shows a complete misunderstanding of their ways. And one of the things that I would say is that even we who read the books, we're not supposed to fully understand the Aiel, right?
Mm-mm.
We don't really think like they do. And Jordan is careful that though he explains them, there's still some things he never fully explains, because he wants us to feel that they're a little alien, and they are, they are like some of the things they find funny, and
Yeah,
and
the
like
early Avienda point of view chapters
yeah,
just make my head spin because I just don't understand like their cultural interactions. Like they're just so weird and
but
make
that's good,
not a
right?
lot of sense to me.
That's good because that's exactly how we should feel because we're seeing things primarily from the sort of Supergirls and the trio boys point of view, and that's exactly how they would feel about the IU.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So anyway, during that little conversation, also, Barrelane, um,
Caroline.
well, yeah,
She
Barrelane.
just hates Fael, and Fael just hates her. It goes on a bit too long, but okay.
Yeah, I think there's like a jealousy,
Yeah, there definitely is.
admiration. Like it's kind of, I think they respect each other,
Yep.
but they just don't like each other.
There's a there's a rivalry, even when the rivalry should be long since done. But
Well, it's the
yeah,
rivalry makes sense because it's obvious that Barrelane does have an interest in Perrin.
yeah. But don't you think her interest is? Well, I mean, right at the beginning, sure. But I think like after Fael's clearly planted her stake, most of Berlin's Berlin knows he's not going to come over, right? Pretty soon. Like she's not stupid. She realizes like this guy's attractive. I'm super attractive. And at first, she like you can see what she tries with Rand in book 3, I want to say, where she
Oh, she was
basically
pushing it a bit too in the last book.
yeah. But the thing is, I think here she's begun to realize this isn't going to realistically happen with Perrin, but she realizes totally that it gives her an ability to manipulate him and to have an influence on him. And it
Mm.
also allows her to completely put one over against Fael, uh, and play on her insecurities because Fael's such a powerful woman. And yet, like, she's physically attractive, she's physically capable, she's rich, she's from a nobility, she has a potential link to the crown. And yet,
Hmm.
in this one area, she can be totally undone by just a really pretty woman. And it drives her ballistic, and Berylane loves that.
We also have to remember too that when Barrelane and Fael first clashed, that Barrelane kicked her ass.
Yeah.
She got saved by Ruark. So it's not like Barrelane is this dainty woman
No.
either.
And
She's a
Berlin, yeah. No, no,
yeah,
you're absolutely
she
right. You're absolutely,
so
and she's a leader,
um
right? She's a huge leader.
yeah,
She doesn't want to play second fiddle to nobody.
right, right. So and then there's,
Yeah,
the
that's a good point.
viewing that Min had regarding the
Oh,
Falcon and the Hawk. So
yeah,
um yeah, they're always going to be at each other's throats, but I think,
yeah,
I think really they do have a sort of respect for each other because they're actually Very similar.
Yep, and certainly by the end. And though they both pull on Perrin, in the end, they're both useful to him. His progression as a person, as a man, as a leader, as a character.
All right. So on top of that, just I forgot to mention, yeah, Berlin just throws in there that Magden
Oh
is
yeah, a Wilder.
a wilder, like a weak, extremely weak Chandler. And I forget how Berlin actually knows
She
this.
has her Aes Sedai with her, doesn't she?
Oh yeah, that's right, Anura. I forgot about that. So the Anura let her know that she is a super weak Chandler Wilder.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure she did it
next.
with a curled lip as well. Like, you know,
And you guys all know Magden is
the queen.
Margay's. So um, we get a quick point POV, well, a pretty important POV here with Perrin that we switch back to. One of his scouts bring back some of the prophet's men.
Yeah, this is the hanging, isn't it?
Yeah, so he hangs. I know the leader is a complete zealot
Yep,
who doesn't flinch whatsoever.
from what he's done.
No. I know one of the younger ones kind of pleads for forgiveness, but
Yeah,
what they
but
did was a horrible atrocity.
yeah, they killed
And
all the people at the farm. Like, no one was spared.
right, so I think Perrin did feel bad,
Oh, he
but he
does.
knew he had to do something for the sake of justice. You know, they just murdered a bunch of innocent people.
But if
And not
Perrin had,
only, yeah, not only did they do it, murder the people, they did it in
the name of
Rand's
the dragon,
name.
yeah,
Yeah. So this, he definitely has to make a statement here. He can't just let these um, so-called dragonsworn
get away
roam
with it.
wild.
But
Yeah.
you see,
So
the
he
thing is, he
go
could
ahead.
have, right? He could have, if he'd wanted to. He could have completely thrown in with the prophet and gone, as nobility, we can do what we like. You know, everyone who doesn't agree with us is against us. But that's just completely against his character. But
Hmm.
like we often see in these books, and in almost any depiction of medieval era nobility, that they actually could totally get away with that. He who has the army makes the rules. But Perrin is different. He's like, no, if it's wrong, it's always wrong. Yes, this is going to make it much more complicated for me to complete my mission. Yes,
Hmm.
I could sweep this under the carpet, but no, I'm not going to do so. It's vital that I don't. It's vital that someone who stands for Rand stands up for what is right, and he makes a very bold, not a very political decision, a very a moral decision.
Hmm.
Yeah, but hates doing it as well because it's killing people, which he hates to do.
Right.
Oh, I
Right.
love Perrin. I love Perrin. He makes all the hard choices.
So yeah, he hangs the I guess they're just raiders. They
The dragon
basically act like
swarm.
bandits. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So they are hung and made an example of,
yep,
these are the hardships of leadership, the hard decisions that you have to make
yep.
when so he's taking the burden of doing so
And
and
he's going through. It shows us that he's going through changes, not just changes becoming a wolf brother, but he is now becoming someone who can make that kind of a call.
right, right. Um and we did see that slowly happening earlier in the book where you know, he was
Yep.
always telling them to take down the banners, and now
Mm.
he's letting them fly, and he's kind of
Yeah.
grown into this position, and he's actually starting to accept it at this point.
Agreed.
All right, so we're going to go in the next chapter 11, questions and an oath.
hmm
This chapter is about the Shido.
Yep.
So we're going back, and there actually is a power struggle that seems to be going on within the Shido.
Hmm.
Um, and this is Savannah versus her wise ones,
Yep.
and they're actually clashing right now. I believe a lot of it is chalked up to the recent failures. So we
Yep,
have the disaster at Demise Wells,
yep.
as well as her trust in Kadar,
Kadar.
which caused them to be fodder for um, the armies that were approaching Ilion.
Yeah. Well, they split them up, didn't they? And like now the leader of the Shadow is gone, the one who was going to be the clan chief, and they also like she, we know that she murdered um
One of the
the
wise
one who should
ones.
have been the leader of the wise ones, but other wise ones helped her do it. And so like it's a tricky situation because they all know that she doesn't have the one power, right? And
Hmm.
they all do. So she shouldn't really be the leader. She's kind of acting as if she's clan chief because she's not really able to be a proper wise one. She hasn't gone through the pillars, and so it's this weird balance of she's acting as if she's more powerful than any clan chief's ever been, and she's already beginning to act more like a wetlander clan chief
Hmm.
than a true Aiel one. And so it's really really interesting that when everything was going well, they were letting her get away with this, but now they want to push back. But the problem is, can they push back? Because she knows their secret. She knows that they agreed to the murder. So that sort of blackmail is binding them all together.
Yeah. So yeah, the way the wise ones work is pretty interesting too. As I know to be a chief, you pretty much are required to do specific tasks.
Yep.
But in order to be a wise one, it's actually pretty malleable because the final test for being a wise one is just exerting your will and declaring that you are a wise one. That's
Well,
what happens
but
when.
you are supposed to go through the pillars, aren't you?
Well, I believe so. I don't know if that's yeah, yeah, you kind of have to.
Yep. To
But I
be a full
know
one. To
to
be a
be a
full one.
full one. But yeah, it's pretty strange how malleable the whole wise one thing is. But
Mhm.
so what's going on now in the Shido's neck of the woods is that I know they captured some Shan Chan person and
Yeah, but
tortured
that's
them
not
to
particularly
death.
important. I think the main thing here is to acknowledge there is the tension with Savannah, but the you know the people don't really tell them much. They're lost in a foreign land. But the key point is about Galena. I think like
Yeah,
because that's
so
important for later.
yeah, Galena does is pretty important. She has her own POV in this chapter. So I think yeah, we can just go ahead and go into well, what I do know before we talk
Go
about
on.
Galena is that well yeah, I guess yeah, we did kind of talk about how there is this kind of
Yeah.
power struggle between I guess the top wise one at this point in the Shido side of things would be Tharava.
Yeah, for sure. Like Thorava is clearly the most dangerous and the one because of her gravitas and her
Hmm.
age to an extent. She has a lot of influence and she is tough as nails.
She's very, I would say, arrogant, in that she believes she's stronger than any two, like Aes Sedai or something. I took a look at the power levels. She's high, but there are a number of Aes Sedai that are stronger than she is.
Yeah, she obviously has a limited understanding. Remember back in book one when they discover the girls, like Moraine is like, "Oh my goodness, Egwene, you're like the most powerful person I've ever seen," kind of thing. And then oh my goodness, there's another girl in this same village who's even stronger than you. And so basically, before book one, she might have had a point. But now we actually realize that there's a lot of very powerful people out there that just most people aren't aware of. And so Thorava, one, she is arrogant, but two, she doesn't really understand what we do. She doesn't have the lists we have.
Oh, that's
And,
true.
and she
She is
also,
stronger than anybody else she knows. definitely true.
And also, when she sees the Aes Sedai use their powers, they don't use their powers fully, do they? Like, they all have rules, they hide their best abilities so that no one else can learn them. Whereas with the wise ones, it would just be a bit more obvious. And, like, hey, look at this, boom. Um, and so I think that's it shows her naivete and her limitation of her knowledge. If she bumped into Nynaeve, I don't think she'd be saying that, but she
Mm.
never has.
Yeah, so going over to Galena,
Yep,
um, her point of view starts, she's being punished for striking
a wise one.
a wise one, and her punishment is they put her in a sack and suspended her over a fire or
Yeah,
some coals. So I don't know if they're trying to cook her behind
yeah,
or
they're just torturing her in a
just
way
making
that
her
won't
feel very
actually kill her.
uncomfortable.
And one of the
Yeah,
things is it would make her sweat, which
right,
deprives her of water, which is a very
right.
ideal thing to do.
Mm, true. So it's a very ideal torture.
Yeah, and
So
they also do that thing. What you call it? Like, no, no, you're gonna get to that with the oath rod. You're gonna talk about that, right?
yes,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
So um, she she got the oath rod from Kadar, right?
Savannah did because Savannah's got it, right?
Yeah. So in order to bring Galena into complete obedience,
Yeah,
they have her swear on the oath rod, and it's a pretty bad oath. Like they
yeah.
have to completely obey
In all
what.
things or something like that.
Yeah, it's almost as if her will is almost completely stripped away by the time it's done.
Hmm.
But there's a point in which they tell her she's like crying hysterically, like right after she gets submitted to the oath rod.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's Galena or Thorava that just tells her to shut up.
Yeah.
And she can't do anything else but that.
Her voice just stops.
Yeah. It's like she can't even, um, pour out her emotions at the time. It's just like, bam, she can't even physically do it. Just like how the oath rod prevents them from channeling, um, you know. But
I want to ask you something here, Dusty, as
mm,
someone who understands the series well. What do you think about this? Because obviously we know that Galena doesn't have, or rather has unsworn the normal oaths on the oath roll, because we know already at this point in the books that she is black.
mhm,
So we know that she's already she is not bound by the three normal oaths, but she
right,
is bound by the three dark one oaths. Okay,
right.
and so how do you think these oaths, this new oath that she's sworn, interplay with her dark one oaths?
Well,
Like,
here's where I'm
does
a
that
little
cause her pain?
confused. Like, I find this a little confusing because I know once a black sister um, takes an oath with, the dark oaths that nullifies the previous oath.
Well, no, they take them off. They use the
Oh, are they
rod to
removed?
remove them,
Oh,
and then they swear
wow.
through new ones. But these
So
ones
I'm
haven't been
assuming,
removed.
I'm assuming that there's probably a case that can happen
Yeah, where
in
you're
which she
sworn.
receives a critical error.
Yeah, like, because one of the oaths to the dark one is like, it's something like, I will. It's very similar to what they've just made her swear, but
Hmm.
it's like, I will obey all the commands of those above me in service of the great Lord. So what if someone above her in the service of the great Lord gives her direct command, and Galena or Savannah Savannah or Thorava give her a countermanding order, like, you know what you said, critical error,
She'd receive the
explode.
blue screen of death, I think. She'd probably just freeze and be unable to do anything.
And I assume that would also happen if they said, "Tell us about the Black Aja." because one of the oaths is that you will hold the secrets until the hour of your death.
Mm.
And so like she'd be like,
Maybe it would actually force her to poison herself or something.
to kill herself because she's like, you're gonna make me
Yeah.
break that oath, and that oath would kill. Anyway, just a weird thought that went through my head when all this happened. I just thought, how does that actually work? And he never shows us. No one ever actually does go to blue screen of death. But
Yeah.
yeah, it, yeah.
So yeah,
Anyway,
that's the big
that's that
deal that
chapter.
happens here is she swears this oath on the oath rod. And one thing we do know is Galena is completely and utterly terrified of Thurava.
Oh yeah,
We keep hearing her inner thoughts over and over and how she doesn't want to spend any amount of time near her.
yeah,
And she's always afraid of what she'll have her do next.
yeah,
Um, and I know right now is also indicative of the power struggle as well, because when they're doing the oath, the Rava insists that the wise ones have precedent
yeah.
over her when it comes to the order of operations regarding the orders given to Galena, right?
Hmm.
Like they should follow the wise one's orders over Savannah's orders.
Well, Tharaba's.
Well, her and
She names
Savannah,
herself. Yeah,
yeah. But the Rava becomes on the level of Savannah,
yeah.
which I know Savannah is not happy about.
No. And the thing is, like, she doesn't fear Savannah like she does Tharava, and that's because Savannah may be in a important position, but Galena knows that she's nowhere near as dangerous.
Hmm.
She's an idiot. Like, she's an idiot in a very powerful position. She's sly, she's a bit cunning, but she is no Tharava. Tharava is far, far, far more dangerous. Not only in the fact that she has the power, but she's much cleverer.
Yeah. So after that happens, Thurava has a conversation with Savannah, and she lets Savannah know that the wise ones have met without her. This does irk Savannah, as she considers herself a wise one.
Yeah, but they don't.
And well, yeah, so Thurava actually gave a pretty good reason. The reason why they didn't meet with her specifically is because they needed to decide who would be her wise one advisor.
Yep.
When she, because clan
For
chief
clan chief.
requires
Yeah.
some type of wise one advisor, and Thurava got selected as that person.
Yeah. As if she would let anyone else be selected.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
No way.
And it's interesting that now that I think of it, the Shido Wise One power structure is starting to mimic the Aes Sedai
Yeah.
power structure, whereas the most powerful are those who are the leaders, where that's not the case when we come to the average, like the non-Shido Wise Ones.
Correct.
For those, it's whoever has the strongest will
Yeah.
is kind of who becomes the leader.
Agreed.
So we do have this interesting dichotomy where you have the Shido wise ones mimicking the
Outlander.
tower, whereas you have the Aiel trying to stay. They're trying to stay traditional, but of course that's changing with these times.
Yep.
All right, so we can go on to the next chapter, New Alliances,
Yeah.
and it's the first POV is Grandal.
Oh.
And oh, I love this. So this is an interesting interaction here.
Hmm.
Grandal's doing her Master of Puppets thing,
Hmm.
um, and she's making a letter or some type of orders to Rodel Ituralda, one of the great captains.
Yep.
And while she's doing this, a gateway just opens. And I don't believe it's because I know they have some sort of well, I know amongst the Forsaken, they kind of have usually some type of forewarning system, or at least
Yeah,
they
they
do
have
some
ways
type
of
of.
checking.
Yeah, they usually use a courtesy before they just kind of like jump in there. In this case, they just jump in there, and this kind of irks Grandal.
Grendel.
So
Yep.
Grandal, and so through the portal comes Mogideon and another woman that Grandal does not recognize, and her name is Sindane. And she sees that Sindane is actually quite powerful. And she finds it odd that this woman she never met seems to be um, ordering Mogideon around. And not only is she ordering Mogideon around, she is actually expressing her will towards Grandal by being very flippant and disrespectful to her.
She's like, "What the crap? I'm one of the flipping chosen."
Yeah, exactly. Like, who's this Wilder or this random wench
Black
that you brought
Black
with you?
Azure woman
Yeah.
probably assumes that she's one of these new kids.
So basically, Sindane's and Sindane is taking the lead here. She tells Grandal, "Hey, we have a nameless, and his name is Moradin, and you have orders that need to be followed." Uh, Grandal's like, "WTF?" Like, yeah, right. Like,
Because
who
she
are
thought
you?
she was trying to be nameless. She thought it was still up for grabs, and
Yeah, she's like, "Yeah, right. Who are you? This is BS.
yeah.
Um, there's no way this is real." And she thinks that like Moghedian is just trying to pull a fast one
Mm-hmm.
on her. But while they're talking, um, Sindane does let her know that Samael is dead. But Grandal already knew this somehow. I'm not sure how she knew, but she said
Well,
she did.
the Grendel has eyes and ears everywhere, and but the key point here, I think, is that politically that's meant to be like a blow to her, because her and Samael were allied in the last book,
Hmm.
and Morgedian obviously knew this because of their little council chat, um, and so they're like, haha, you'll feel like alone when we tell you that your ally's dead. But she's like, no, I already knew. Like when people kill my main ally, you think I don't have eyes and ears there? Come on, I'm Grendel.
Hmm.
And so she's like, she tries to, in her own head, she's like, that's no surprise to me. But obviously it doesn't end there, right?
No, so um, she thinks they're lying, and
Not about Samael, but about the Nameless.
yeah, she still thinks they're lying. But Sindane's mission is just, hey, these are the Dark Lord's orders himself. So she actually throws quite a powerful compulsion on them. I think
Yeah.
it hits Mogideon, and it doesn't affect Sindane as much, but Mogideon stays with the same story after being under the
Compelled.
compulsion, so it must not be a lie. Then at that point, Shadar Haran shows up, and Grandal. I don't. She does she have that much interaction? The only one who had like a pretty close interaction with him was Mogideon, at least on
And
page.
no, one other. Oh, what's he freaking called? The the guy who doesn't turn up till the end, Demandred, when he
Oh
goes
yeah,
to,
Demandred
when he
went
actually
to
goes to the,
Sheol.
yeah, when he goes to Shagul, he actually meets him. But yeah, she's never seen him, and no one really knows. And Shada Haran hasn't really said what he is either. So it's like
They
it's
just
no
know he's
surprise.
different.
Yeah,
He's significantly taller,
and
and
he
he
acts differently.
yeah he acts more human, if that makes
Well,
sense.
he acts more independent. He's not.
Independent. There you
Yeah.
go.
But
Um,
just gives orders to Grendel. So you're like, Murdral don't give orders to me. But
Yeah, so he does give her an order that she needs to go um, to
report tomorrow. Then.
Sheol. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, to report to Moradin. But even then, in her own internal dialogue, she doesn't give up. She still believes there's probably a way to scheme herself up to the top,
It's totally the way.
regardless.
Yeah, that's how they all
Regard-
think. It's how they all think.
yeah, all of them are probably thinking that it's they're not. Oh, I'm the nameless. Yes, I will have complete and utter devotion. They all have some type of scheme going on in the back of their head on how they can maneuver on each other. But the next POV in this chapter, we get to Cad Swain. Um, I really liked
Mm,
this interaction, mostly for the last part of the chapter. I know in the beginning, she meets with a couple of sisters, and the sisters, she basically is gathering information. She
yeah.
meets with the sisters, and these sisters are completely sworn fealty to Rand.
Hmm.
And Cadsuane is just kind of disgusted by it
Yeah, like
because,
she thinks that sisters should have been clever enough to create links with Rand without putting themselves beneath him. Because she like many Aes Sedai believe that without someone guiding him, leading him, that he'll be a man and wreck it.
right. So, okay, so I'm gonna get to my favorite part is
Go on.
when, well, before that, she does meet with Alana to get information about Rand's whereabouts
Yeah,
because she knows where he kind of is because of the Warder bond.
but
But as they were talking, well, were you gonna say something
no, I'm
about
just saying. No,
Alana?
I agree. Just move on. Yeah, definitely. Most
Okay,
important part.
so Cad Swain and Sorelia
Right.
are like the two biggest, like, hard-willed women in the Wheel of Time.
Hmm.
Um, and it is interesting that we see how their hierarchy is. So we have the Aes Sedai hierarchy, which totally runs on power and power alone. And then we have the Wise One hierarchy, which is all about will.
Mm,
And we have these two meetings of these two powerhouses. It's not that Cad Swain is the Armorlin anyone or anything like that, but
no.
she is very strong in the power,
And
and
highly
she's old,
respected.
highly
Very
respected,
respected.
has a lot of experience and wisdom because she's an older Aes Sedai.
Mm,
But basically all of the sisters within her vicinity pay deference to her.
absolutely.
Yeah. So whatever she says goes apart. So they meet, and what I love about this is Cad Swain's POV. So
Mm,
it's definitely a joust when they meet. She's kind of feeling Sorelia out,
hmm.
and she's choosing her words very carefully to make sure that she doesn't say anything that might make her lose face or power in the situation that they're in.
Yes.
So she's meeting her out, and as this discussion goes on, she slowly begins to build a lot of respect for
Mm,
Sorelia.
yep.
And in the end, they're talking about Rand, and okay, I think Andrew wants to get in. Let me, because I have to make sure I tap him in when he gets in. All right, but in the end, they come to agreement on how they need to handle Rand. I think they have different objectives,
Yes.
but they kind of agree that when their objectives align, that they'll assist each other.
Is this where they agree to make him laugh and cry?
Right. To
Yeah.
keep him human, to like keep him sane, to keep him human, to keep him grounded. Um,
But also to make sure
That
he turns up at Shia Gul, right?
right. So they're both, but they know each. They themselves have their own motives, but
Mm,
when their motives align, they agree to help each other.
yeah.
And there is one thing that I thought was pretty awesome that Sorelia did, um, that really put Cad Swain in her debt, right?
Yeah.
She gains a huge debt to Sorelia, and the huge debt was Sorelia demonstrated a weave
Yeah.
to Cad Swain, but Sorelia is not anywhere near strong enough
To
to
use it.
actually have this weave work.
No.
And Cad Swain sees this weave, and Sorelia says, "Yes, this is the weave for traveling."
Which is
And
so powerful. So
yeah,
influential.
it's basically like when the internet was introduced, basically. Um, that's how powerful that
Yep.
weave is. It's basically it changes everything.
Yes.
Being able to communicate at a speed that is instantaneous, because that's
Yeah.
what it does. That's probably the most important thing that they gain from traveling is this instant communication.
Yeah. And also the fact that you can just turn up inside someone's castle.
Right.
Like
So
that
that
it messes up with the whole idea of walls being hugely important. Just like the invention of like the helicopter and the jet engine has made the idea of building castles now irrelevant.
right, right. So as that chapter closes, mutual respect, and Cad Swain becomes in Ceralia's debt because of the weave that she gave Cad Swain. And what I would have loved too, because this is probably one of my favorite chapters of this series of chapters that we're doing. I wonder what Ceralia's POV would have been,
Yeah,
how
can
that
I
would have been written.
yeah, and can I just throw something out here? It's I know it's like not relevant now really, but back in the day when we
Hmm.
were reading this for the first time, a lot of people, like there was quite a significant subsection of the community that were banking on Sorelia being a dark side, being a dark friend.
Really?
Yep, for sure. They're like that,
Hmm.
and they like there was even arguments about why it would be that way, like the fact that she would be able to use the true power, and then that's why her not having power would end up being irrelevant because she'd use the true power and all these different things. Um, but um, but yeah, they all thought that was one of the reasons we never got her POV was because anyone who didn't get a POV
Well,
we're up for suspicion, and he was Jordan was very good at springing people on us that we didn't suspect, and so a lot of them were like, "I bet he's going to do Sorelia," and I'm really glad he didn't. I'm really glad he didn't. But I just wanted you to know, especially because you mentioned that POV thing, the lack of her POVs were one of the big reasons she was suspected.
mm.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Is that why Varen was a
it's one of the
big jaw
reasons.
drop?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons that people thought it couldn't be Varen because
Because she
she
had
had POVs,
POVs.
and at no point did she think, "Haha, I am the Dark One's tool to destroy Rand," uh,
Mm.
because of the specific because of the specific way she was thinking. Right, like she genuinely was on Rand's side, but was
All right, is everybody in?
I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm back. I'm back.
All right, sorry about that, Andrew. Google Meets has now enforced an hour. It's like an hour max, so I have to change the conference software. I'm probably changing it to Skype.
Okay.
So if you have Skype on your machine, or if you don't, you'll need to download it for the future.
Okay. Yeah, I have Skype. Do you have to are you able to record Skype calls?
I record anything.
Oh, okay.
Anything that appears in a window on a computer, I can record it.
Oh, okay.
He's
That's
not
good.
doing it. He's not doing it through Skype. He's just recording via
Okay.
other software.
Okay.
All
We
right.
better crack on though, because got
Yes,
1 hour left to finish this.
What chapter
let's
are you guys on?
crack on. Oh, we're on chapter 13, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll get through it pretty quick here. All right, let me see. Let me make sure our audio is good. I think we're good there. And yeah,
So
sorry everybody about the interruption. We just had technical issue regarding our software here. So we're gonna.
Is it is your YouTube channel like adding the two streams together?
No, it's just one stream. Well, the software compiles everything into one stream
Oh, okay.
and
That's good.
sends that to YouTube.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. So, yeah, getting back into it. We were about to get into the next chapter, actually,
yep,
which
floating
is,
like snow.
yeah. So, this chapter is Rand dealing with the Ilian debacle. And it's a lot of, this chapter is just, what do you want to call it? It doesn't really advance the plot much. It just kind of talks about the interactions between these two. Who are these two people? It's like they're two generals.
No way. The
Marcoan.
plot isn't advanced that much in a Wheel of Time chapter?
So there's these two.
Sarcasm.
Yeah, there's these two generals that Rand has to talk to, and
Yeah. Yeah.
actually, there's a big thing that happens in this chapter
Yeah.
where, if you notice, Rand hasn't had any loose Theron, and loose Theron popped up out of nowhere here. Um, and Rand isn't sure, is this a bad sign or not?
It is. Sorry.
Yeah, it's definitely bad. Like, we do see that certain things get worse for Rand, revolving around the one power.
Mm.
But right now, he's going to meet with an army he now controls. So we know in his last book he conquered Ilion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he has to deal with the new people in power in Ilion, all the generals and the military and whatnot.
Can I
And
ask you, Arjun, do you think that Jordan does this well? Like, because, and I'll explain what I mean. Because Rand took Tyr kind of first, right? And it showed you how he had to deal with taking over Tyr. And then it showed how he had to do that with, um, my Andor, and then
mhm.
Kainen, and then technically the Aiel to an extent, and now with Ilion. In your opinion, is Rand getting better at this?
I think so because, well, taking a look at this chapter, Rand confronts, and he's trying to bring order to chaos, right?
Yep.
Right, hold on a second.
That's very much, I think, part of what these books are about is order versus chaos, and the Dark One being the representative of let the Lord of Chaos rule, and Rand and the others bring order. Perrin through making, and Rand through uniting. And it's one of the reasons that the Sean Chan becomes such an important facet, because even though they're kind of evil, they are very, very orderly. So yeah.
Yeah, because during this kind because he's out in the Ilion countryside. I know because of the turmoil that happened in Ilion with him becoming now the king.
Yep.
There's the countryside really didn't immediately rally under him.
No.
And of course, there's going to be, groups of either rebels or bandits and everything else taking advantage. But at this time, Rand hears bad news that Abu Dar and Amador has been completely taken by the Shan Chan.
Yep.
And, this is one thing that he knew he was going to have to deal with eventually. He just didn't think he was going to have to deal with it now. So now this is something he now has to factor in his plans, like immediate plans moving forward. That the Shan Chan are back and they have control of 2 areas. And while he's out and about in the Illianer countryside, trying to basically rally the Illianers together under his flag,
Yep.
I know he encounters like I don't know what you want to call him. It's like he thinks they're like bandits, but when he talks to the leader, well, it wasn't the leader, it was like a representative of the leader of this band. He talks to them and he tries to convince him that, well, first, the guy treats him with utter disrespect. That's not befit of,
The
because,
dragon.
well, he's not only is he the Dragon Reborn, he's like the crown king of Ilion.
That's
So
true.
when he's trying to talk to this rebel dude, the guy doesn't treat him like he's his king. This upsets, of course, the Illianer generals who are under his wing are already down with the cause. But it makes sense, this new guy that's not from Ilion is all of a sudden king of, how am I supposed to take that? Eventually, the guy hears Rand's terms. One second.
I think Andrew, just one of the reasons I think they find that difficult is like they feel the others folded too easily. But if you are someone who's been a person who's been complicit, seeing people who haven't been is hard to take.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think do you think we see that in other books, like even in things like Abercrombie's work, that like when you find someone who's like, I'm a little bit of a sly one, so anyone else who isn't, I hate that about them.
Right.
Be
Yeah.
scum. Be scum like me, or you're going down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It's like those people pretending to be all moral and righteous and good and stuff. Fuck
I
those
hate
people.
those guys. I hate them.
Yeah.
Yeah, ultimately he does get this woodsman to report back to his leader with his terms. His terms are basically, join up. That's those are his terms. Join up or else. And I know initially when he addresses, because he can, well, with the one power, he has heightened senses, so he could see that there's a bunch of other people hiding in the woods.
Yeah.
And he used the one power to elevate his voice, so not only that the guy that came forward can hear him, but everybody else that his band would consist of that was kind of hiding out in the periphery. So it's not a secret to everybody else, and he did that deliberately.
Yeah.
Because he knows that, hey, he's offering these guys some purpose here instead of being like some wilderness bandits.
And also making it clear, like, I'm not going to murder you, right?
Right.
Like, because that's what they could do. They could go back and go, oh, guys, there's no chance. This guy is a rabid lunatic. If you don't stay with us, you go back to him, he'll just slaughter you all. Rand's making it clear that even if they go back and change the message, by the way, guys, look at me not killing people, you can come home. And it's clever, Rand. It's simple, but clever.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like you were kind of talking about earlier, he's getting better at playing the game of houses.
Agreed. So
where are we now?
so we're just finished. We finished floating like snow, and we're looking at chapter 14, I believe. So he gets back, and he's had a message from the Black Tower, that basically there's a bunch of Aes Sedai who are coming towards the Black Tower. So it's like, this is probably a problem. Now we know as readers that Aleda's sent these guys, but Rand thinks, oh, they're coming to be like the people I arranged to come. And so he like gives them, without meaning to, wrong information. He says like the Black Tower isn't in danger, leave them alone, don't interact. But actually we know that actually they're going to try something with the Black Tower. But Rand doesn't know that. So
yeah. And do I
there.
remember correctly that some of this is that Rand is not taking what some people are saying about Aleida seriously enough, so he's like not going to meet with her or anything, and that could have, like, it seems like if he had done that, that could have been a way to avoid some of this stuff that was happening. Do I remember Min talking to him about that?
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, if Rand talked to people, who knows what could have happened?
Yeah,
we might have the entire series.
It would have been a way shorter series. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I had an extended conversation here with an employee.
No problem. Okay. We just went into the next chapter, chapter 14, and we're talking about Rand's message from the Black Tower.
Okay, because I didn't have my earpiece in, so I didn't hear anything.
Well, but yeah. So is anything in particular? Like, we just said that obviously he thinks they're like, oh, some of the sisters are coming, and he's like, hey, that's no bother. Just don't mess with them.
Are we talking about that asshole Torval?
Yes, we are talking about Torval. Oh, you're not a fan. You're not a fan of Mazrim Taim and his little buddies.
Torval. Like, first impression of Torval is like, this guy's an ass.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely. Well, we do see that he seems more afraid of Taim than he is of the Dragon Reborn.
Yep, because he's in his little crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, Torval's a piece of garbage, but yeah. This is basically like I guess this chapter is more about. I know he goes off on Torval regarding like the sisters. Did you guys talk about that already?
Yeah. Just that he goes off and says, "Don't mess with them," but actually we know that they're coming to actually try something because we know from Aleda's point of view what she's done, and so it's tricky. But he says, "No, hands off, don't mess with them." And so that's interesting because the reader knows far more than Rand does. But also,
how much does Rand know? Because
squat, he does not know that the sisters are sending a proper delegation.
Does he not know that Egwene, or I'm sorry, Elaine is traveling to Carrion? He doesn't. I mean, to Andor, right?
Yeah, but that he I don't think so. Not yet. He wants her to. He sent Matt to go pick her up, but that's more difficult than you think because when someone sends you to be picked up, you choose to not be picked up, and the girls are object to being treated like objects. Oh, who knew? And then this group that the Black Tower have sussed out is a large group of sisters moving towards them, and so
does he know these are rebels or if they're Tarvalin?
He doesn't know, but he just tells them just do nothing with them. Whereas we know that Aleida has sent this group to take the Dark Tower down, but but she sent them off before she really knew that she was going to fail at Demai Wells.
That's right.
And as we know, that's just going to end. She also still thinks that the farm is some hodgepodge of desperate wilders. And she's like, nope. And just one of the things I think that I'd like to bring up is the difference between the men's version of training that they've been forced to because of their circumstances
Oh
and the
yeah.
women's version of training. The women are constantly told not to go quick, be slow, surrender to the power, and then like don't risk burning out. The men are taking
Mhm.
an absolutely by necessity different route. It's forcing, forcing, forcing all the time, and that sounds like so much better because like they're getting people superpowered really quickly. And so, just to make sure that the reader doesn't misunderstand, I like the fact that Torval mentions we've had like 51 burnouts. You know,
Right.
loads of people are just dying with this method. But, like,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Rand does not
yeah,
have the luxury of time.
no.
So,
And the men are going insane, right? The
yes,
tame
some of them
exists.
are. Yes.
So, it's, you've
Did he
kind of got to.
include the burnouts with those that they have to kill by poisoning?
No, he includes them separately.
Okay. So, wow. So we have the deserters,
Yeah.
those who go insane and have to be quietly put down by being
10,
poisoned.
because they went mad from the taint.
And then those who completely burn out, right?
Yeah, which is like being gentled, right?
Or die.
Well, remember, if you're gentled, you often want to die.
Hmm.
Like that's one of the things that they've established since the very first book, that gentling, or I've forgotten what they call it when it's a girl, but like when you have the power removed, it's it's so awful that you feel like many people just commit suicide or forget to eat because like the
Right.
joy has gone out of their lives. So it's a pretty serious deal being burnt out.
Right. Yeah, so Torval, yeah.
So he's scum.
Yeah, Torval's a piece of garbage. All right. Um, so let's see. Next thing that
Yeah,
happens is
it's just information.
yeah, it's just talking about like what they're gonna do with Abadar and this Shan Chan and
Yeah, I
um
I think there's one thing. The secret orders are useful to mention because this is, I think, one of the first times we see him treat Narishma. Am I pronouncing that right?
yeah, he
He,
gives them the special orders.
but even the reader doesn't know what they are.
No, we
So
don't.
you can
We
imagine.
know what they are, but
Yeah, but at the time when we read that, the
oh yeah, nobody knew.
speculation on that was rife. Like like
I
uh,
could imagine.
some people thought that that was orders to kill Tame.
Mm,
And by the way, the reason I remember that was one of the things is because that was my camp. I was like,
mm,
he sent Narishma, like Narishma is going to be his assassin. He's going to go back to the tower and kill Tame because Torval has like told Rand Tame's getting out of hand. Well, he didn't mean to tell him that, but that's what Rand understood. And I'm like, let me tell you, your Narishma is going to be Rand's assassin. It was not
mm.
that at all. But anyway, that's what we were thinking. All sorts of
Yeah.
crazy stuff. All
There was
sorts.
also a little bit of discussion about some of the reaction of the Bowl of the Winds.
Yeah, yeah,
That one of
yeah.
the Ashamen was close to that area,
Yep. And it
and he,
changed everything.
yeah, like he couldn't. Um, he was having trouble channeling
Yep.
in the vicinity of that.
Hmm.
So there's
I
like,
forgot
that's
about that.
something to consider.
Yeah.
Well, we do know that the Bowl of the Winds had some weird
Effect on
reaction.
Tame.
Yeah, where we saw when they did their whole ceremony, they felt the male half of the power come out of the
Uh,
bowl.
yeah. I
So
forgot
that's
about that.
so, yeah, so weird. But we can
It
get
makes
into
sense,
the,
right? Because all the biggest things you can do with the power have to have both. They have.
yeah. So
Hmm.
it's almost as if it had like its own battery or well of it within.
Yeah, they
That's
switched it on, but it
That's
did
like
do more.
similar to how you were talking earlier about how, it's these opposing forces with Rand. He's being like the order and he's fighting the chaos. But then later on in the series, and even now, it's less so that dichotomy between good and evil than it was in the first books. It kind
Hmm.
of like starts tearing it down a bit after that. And then as the series progresses, especially when you get closer to the end and when Rand stops like alienating everyone and accepts that he needs people's help to achieve this ultimate goal, that especially when even farther than that, even into the end of the series, there's more and more of this breaking down of this supposed dichotomy between like good and evil, masculine and feminine, and order and chaos.
Agreed.
Yes. So let's jump in the next chapter. Stronger than written law. Starts with Egwene. We got a dream sequence and 3, I guess, things that kind of happen. Because we always got to take and see what these actually mean. So one of her, I guess, because you would call her a dreamer, and she sometimes interprets. She has some precognitive,
Well, yeah.
like
Dreamers
fortune teller.
dreamers do have a bit of that though, don't they?
A
It's
little
part
bit of
the
it. I
gift.
know.
It's part of the gift.
So, yeah, it's part of being a dreamer. But one of the things she sees is Rand wearing different masks.
Mhm.
But one of the masks is not a mask. It's just him, I guess.
and this is interesting because there's multiple levels to this. There's the idea that
Yeah.
Rand is being different people, like the noble Rand, the dragon Rand, the farm boy Rand, the swordmaster Rand, the husband Rand. But there's also that fact that the way they're going to get Rand out of dying at the end, the simulacrum, yeah,
Mm.
the wrong person dying in his body, which isn't him, but
Ah.
yeah. So it's that as well.
Okay. The second one was pretty easy. Perrin and a tinker
Yeah.
are cutting through some like bushes or brambles with a sword and axe. Well, he with the axe, the tinker with a sword. Of
Yeah.
course, it would be pretty strange for
Tinker to have one of
Egwene.
those.
Yeah, but we know what this is.
Yeah.
And the next is Matt weighing 2 Aes Sedai on a balance scale.
Yep.
I don't know what that one was about.
Well, I think it might be when Matt saves them, because there's when they leave Abu Dar, there's 2 Aes Sedai that Matt takes with them, helps escape,
Okay.
and so because he helps them escape, that leads to the Daughter of the Nine Moons being kidnapped.
Okay.
So I would say that would be my judgment, but it could be a lot of different Aes Sedai. It could also be, for example, that one of the Aes Sedai could be Moraine as well, because obviously it's like, what are you prepared to give up for one other person or for 2 other people? And if it had been 3, I'd have thought it was when he rescued the girls, but that's already happened. So anyway, the one I think it's the Abu Dar rescue, because 2 Aes Sedai that are currently Sean-Chan pets, and they rescue 2 of them. They get them out at great risk.
Right. Okay. So now we have basically Egwene is asleep in her tent, and Swan needs to go talk to her. Halima's standing guard outside.
Yeah, because she loves Egwene. She's got to look after her sleep.
Sure. Halima is a dark friend, or even more than that. Basically, one of the Forsaken.
I shake my head at your dark aspersions. She's just a nice masseuse.
It's probably like one of the deepest embedded.
Yeah.
Currently, like Forsaken. Like if they knew she was a Forsaken, wow.
Just by the way as well, I didn't I remember not realizing Halima was a bad guy, like for ages.
I sure didn't.
At the beginning.
Well, I know that Halima talks
really nice.
to the Dark Sisters, or like the Black Aja, and they pay like deference to her.
Not here, they don't. Not for another
The
book.
previous, no, there was one. She talked to somebody, like she broke out Moghedien, remember?
No, but we don't know it's her. They don't tell you it's Halima. She sees a person, and that person faces them.
I guess there's the only clues we have are okay when she danced with Matt. Possibly she channeled at him.
Maybe, but
Maybe.
even some random woman channeling doesn't make her evil.
Well, that's right. I think it's just because that we know, and we know that Jordan put the proper foreshadowing
He
there.
did. The foreshadowing's there, but I'm just saying
We
the,
didn't know. It wasn't explicit, no.
and most readers reading Path of Daggers don't know that Halima was a bad guy.
Right, right, right. That's
But
right.
there are some people who didn't like her. But a lot of them didn't like her because they thought she was a bit too mollycoddling, like Linny or something. Like
Mhm.
she gets in the way, and But loads of people, including myself, were quite defensive because I know characters like this. The servant who is like goes a little bit too far because she loves her mistress, and she like makes decisions for her because it's in her best interests. Those characters in books normally are lovely, right? They're the old
Mhm.
housekeeper who everyone relies on, and I thought Halima was going to be built up to be that character, and then I was obviously surprised when. But he gives us some pretty serious hints before it's actually revealed that she's bad news.
Right.
Um, the hints get thicker and thicker as we go, but definitely when she
Yeah.
does the release of Moghedian, we had no clue it was her. No
Okay,
clue at all.
yeah. Yeah, it's not explicit. That's true. There's little hints there, but as
Yeah.
a second read through, we know for sure she's bad.
Or third or fourth read
Third or
through.
fourth or whichever. So Swan shows up to let um, Egwene know that Gareth Bryn wants to meet with her,
Mm-hmm.
and also they have. Well, I don't know if they talk explicitly about it, but they're starting to see that the weather is going from straight up what drought hellscape to it's starting to freeze
Yeah.
and snow. So there was a very quick transition from hot drought like South Florida rather to oh no, now we're in Canada and Nova Scotia or something or Halifax. It's like
That's wild.
damn, like within a week. Literally within a week, they go from the worst summer to they're now approaching the worst winter.
Agreed.
Um, so what she finds out is just yes, she wants to set up a meeting with Gareth Bryn and wants to she wants to rest the soldiers for a month, and she mentions that. And she's also let known that there's a couple of groups of soldiers,
Yep.
and they're from what they think are mostly Andorans and some Mirandians. So once she's told that by Bryn, she agrees to have someone sent up there to meet with them and have some talks. But after Bryn leaves, she has a pretty interesting discussion with Swan about the three oaths. So
Mm,
Egwene never had to live under the three oaths. She's free of that. And she believes that she needs to free all the other Aes Sedai of those oaths because of the possibility that they may have to do battle and how those oaths will restrict them from doing so.
yeah.
Swan vehemently disagrees
Yep.
and says the oaths are what make Aes Sedai Aes Sedai.
Agreed.
Without the oaths, they are not they are no longer that.
Yeah. They're just channelers.
Yeah, basically. So she kind of dismisses that idea,
Um,
and
who do you think's right? Do you think the fact that the Aes Sedai have the oaths and the implication and cultural impact of that is because obviously they're both influenced, right? Um, Egwene's influenced by the fact it never happened to her, as you said. She's also influenced by the fact that she's realized that there are other ways of making it work. Like she's seen what the wise ones can do, and that they
Yeah.
haven't just gone crazy because they don't have the oaths. They actually handle it really well. But Swan has a lot more experience, and she understands politics in a way that Egwene still doesn't. What do you guys think?
I
Is
think that, well, the thing is about the oaths is that the oaths are common knowledge to everyone.
yeah,
So when you're willing and dealing with Aes Sedai, you know for a fact that they can't lie.
yeah,
But they can weasel and use weaselly language and things like that. But if
yeah,
you ask
Yeah,
them a direct
yeah,
question,
and they
they
say,
they cannot. And you know when they say something, it's the truth.
yeah,
I think that actually, if that wasn't the case, I don't think they would be that big of a force or a diplomatic force or even a political force in the world of Randland. Like they would actually have zero trust amongst the world at large.
mm,
I think that's kind of what keeps them in the good graces of the political powers, that um, whatever they say, they can't lie about what they're saying. So at least we can act with them in some sort of good faith way
okay.
because of
So,
those oaths.
so
And
long
also the
term,
culture. There's a culture that actually is created because of mainly the oath of that they cannot lie.
mm,
So when someone says, "Oh, they talk like an Aes Sedai," that's basically they talk in a way so that whatever they say is truth, and whatever they say to avoid the truth is also there as well.
yeah,
So yeah, I think the oaths are a huge part of it because once they become an Aes Sedai, that's what they have to do is swear those oaths. Um, and
but do you think
without,
it's a good thing or a bad thing overall? If you were in charge, would you go for yes or not?
well, there's definitely some major benefits of that. One is that easily, like if someone is a dark friend or a dark, it makes it easier for them to discover
Yep.
if they are one or not, because the Black Sisters are not under the oaths.
And so if you catch someone lying, like outright lying, you know.
You know something's up, right? So I think that under the rod, I don't know. I thought that Swan's argument was. I was more on her side than Egwene's side. Like I understand the practicals
Yeah.
of that, but I also understand is not every channeler that's on the side of light is going to be an Aes Sedai,
Nope.
and like you don't have to have all those who can channel be in direct combat roles.
And
Uh,
yeah. And what do you think, Andrew?
I don't know, man. I kind of,
that's complicated, right?
yeah, it's way too complicated. I kind of agree with you what you said. I mean, it really, like, there are pros and cons, and it depends on what things you're considering, what you value, what factors you value more than the other factors. It's it's why I would not want to have that sort of leadership position,
Mhm.
because
Right.
it's
Hard decisions.
yeah,
It is interesting because there's so many different things, and obviously the Forsaken aren't dealing with these restrictions. But I do think that when I read this, the argument that Swan makes, I find a better argument. But that's no surprise. She's better at making arguments than Egwene is. But one of the things that's interesting is the wise ones have shown it can be done and very
Right.
effectively. But one of the things I think is that, and again, we
They would
have to
have to
admit,
change their hierarchy though, because the
well,
wise one
everything,
hierarchy is very different than
yeah, everything would
Aes
have to
Sedai.
change. But one of the
Yeah.
things that I would say is we just concentrated on the rule not to lie, but the rule not to use the power as a weapon is in some ways even more important. because the reason that the Shonchan leashed the Damne is because they were ruling with the power. And what the same oaths that have made the Aes Sedai incredibly relevant and like super important behind the scenes and the power behind the throne of all countries are also the rules that have prevented them being the queen, prevented them just ruling with power and might. Because if they could have just used power, and we see it happen a lot, don't we? Like the best fighters in the world go up against them and they just tie them up with weaves of air, and you're like, you're helpless to me. It doesn't.
Well, I know if they're being attacked though, they can defend themselves.
Yeah, but that's no good for conquering, is it?
No, not at all.
You can't rule with that. You can just defend yourself, and so that's the thing. And so,
well, they know. Yeah, that's another thing that puts them in good graces with the rest of Randland.
Correct.
Is that they know they are not going to come with 100 Aes Sedai on their doorstep
and fireball them.
Yeah, so I think that restriction is actually a good thing for them.
But it's not useful when you're in the last battle.
Well, not useful for combat, like direct combat, no, but they can be useful in other ways, as we see.
Agreed. No, I think it's a really interesting question. I think the reader is supposed to side with Egwene, and yet when I talk to people, most of them are like, Swan makes some really good points. And yeah, it's just like, hear what you think. Anyway, I know we're running out of time, so back to you, Disney.
Yeah, so last thing before we go to the next chapter, Egwene calls out Swan. It tells basically Swan, hey, I know you're in love with Bryn. Like, what the hell? Of course, Swan's like very agitated that she would say something like that. And eventually she does let Egwene know, yeah, I need to stay, well, as a justification, she says, I need to stay close to him because Min said that if we were apart, we're going to die. But we do know that she's in love with him. It's not super apparent because I know she has to keep it under wraps, and she's an Aes Sedai, so keeping her emotions outwardly under wraps is basically what she does. But we do see like some certain interactions that occur. I know like Bryn said something snarky to somebody, some Aes Sedai, and I think Swan had like a slight grin, and that's kind of what Egwene was like, why is she grinning at that? So yeah, so she gets called out. And at the end, Egwene sends some Aes Sedai to meet up with the Merindians and the Andorans that are gathering. So let's go to the next chapter, chapter 16, Unexpected Absences. And man, Egwene calls a meeting, and basically this is a meeting regarding the gathering of those Andorans and the Merindians, and she's basically informing them on what they're going to do. So they're going to stick around for a few days and make some repairs and stuff. And they talk about money, basically. Yep. Like they're running out of money. They're kind of saying, oh, we're going to take away the soldiers' pay, which is probably the most ridiculous thing they could do.
Yeah, that's how you lose your army. That's how you lose your army.
Basically. So they're trying to figure out that situation as well in this meeting. Anyway, we get into another POV, Arangar.
Yeah.
This is my
basically Halima, right? This is Halima.
Yeah, we know this now, but we don't know this when you're reading this book.
So in this POV, Halima / Arangar is burying somebody.
Yep.
I forgot who.
I don't think it's entirely clear. But later on, there's say that some of the warders have gone missing, and
so this is how we know it's internally. There's internal dialogue,
and
which
the maids go missing.
Yeah, there's like people going missing. I know here and there, and little conversations here and there, you hear about people going missing.
She
And
needed
this
the maids
is,
gone so that Egwene would rely increasingly on her.
yeah. So this is also where, as a reader, you should have put two and two together.
Yeah,
Halima internally misses being a man,
yeah,
but doesn't think that being a woman's not all that bad.
yeah.
So we're like, oh, what the hell?
Yeah.
Such a weird situation going on in this book. So we
But we
go,
already know that Arengar and Ossengar were reborn, Forsaken.
yeah, we know they were reborn. We just didn't know what
That switch.
they were.
gender
Yeah,
switch.
who they were. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we know Ossengar was gender switched, but we didn't know Halima at this point was
And
Ossengar.
we still don't know that.
Unless you really scrutinize the whole gender switch conversation she had
But even
in
if you
her mind.
even if you
It's
scrutinize,
not explicit. Yeah, it's still not explicit
all
yet.
you know is that Arengar's gender switched. You don't know that. All you know is that Arengar is a woman and she used to be a man. We don't have a clue that that person is Halima.
Yeah, that's right. Right. We don't know.
When
Yeah.
do we find that
Just-
out for sure?
The
Eventually.
Crossroads of Twilights.
Yeah, it's gonna be a
Okay.
while. All right, Egwene. So the whole Lelaine and Ramonda thing, yes, is in full effect here. So Lelaine wants her. Both of these women, they're sitters, right?
Yeah.
And they both make demands on Elaine. Some of these folks, or some of these things are talking about the sea folk and how they need to deal with them. But it's not much that happens here, I don't think.
Nah. Just
Um,
moving on.
yeah, it's just like the power struggle between Ramonda and Lelaine, and how Elaine is kind of undermining like both of them.
Yeah.
It's like I'm sorry, Egwene has her own internal dialogue, and a lot of her dialogue revolves around her not showing her cards and
Yeah.
keeping her emotions in check.
Hmm.
Because Egwene has a plan, but we don't know what it is quite yet.
No.
She keeps that hidden to the reader. She also keeps it hidden to most other people. I think Swan knows a little bit of it, but we don't get any inkling about what it is exactly.
And they're both, but we know kind of that it's
It might
gonna
have
be-
something to do with Bryn. We know that.
and that it's anti being a figurehead. Like they both are thinking that they can try and control her, and Egwene's like trying to avoid that. That's like the ongoing story, isn't it?
Right. And next POV, big ass reveal.
I couldn't believe it.
Big ass reveal. Sheriam is a freaking Dark Aja.
Oh, no
Black
way.
Aja.
No freaking way.
Yeah, so I know she has a discussion with somebody.
We don't get told who. We don't get told
Yeah, we
who.
don't know who. I assume
Probably Arengar.
Arangar.
Yep.
But
Probably.
she has a discussion that basically outs her as being one of the black.
Yeah. Because they
And
tell
we're
her
like,
off for not spying on Egwene.
right. So, Sheriam. Oh no, the keeper.
Yeah.
Just like both keepers are freaking Black Aja.
But also, like at the beginning, she's been like next to like
Sheriam
Moraine.
isn't hardcore though. She's black, but she's not like hardcore black.
No, but she's been like their mentor. You know, like when the three young girls came in, she was like sticking up for them and looking out for them as the mistress of the novices. Like, you're like, wow, Sheriam can't be a bad guy, and she totally is. He's like, wow, bizarre.
Yeah, so that was the end of that chapter. Going into the next chapter, Actually, I think we'll just go up to 19 if you guys
Yeah.
are okay with that. I wanted
Yeah.
20 because 20 really. Maybe we'll get to 20 because 20
just-
is a good ending. That's why I wanted.
Let's just slide through and only concentrate
Yeah,
on the
let's see.
important
Let's see what we could do. So, out on the ice, Egwene, POV. So she's on her way to meet the nobles, the Andor nobles that have gathered. She's with Swan, Bryn, and Shiriam, and the sitters, and they're on their way to go talk to these nobles, and we don't know why they're there yet either. And of course, Ramonda and Lelaine let them know that. Um, well, no, I'm sorry. Talmanis is also going to be included in this meeting,
Mm.
and Ramonda and Lelaine were like, what the hell? Dragon sworn, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So at this meeting, the nobles basically tell the Aes Sedai that, well, one, they think that they're there to fight the Black Tower, which is not the case. So the nobles think that they're going to war with the Black Tower and that there's going to be like this huge destruction that happens because of these channelers going up against each other. And they don't want to devastate Andor with their squabble. Egwene tells them, no, that's not what we're doing here. We're on our way to Tar Valon, and we're basically going to fight the other tower. So they try to put them at ease, and they strike up an agreement, I believe, basically saying, you guys, we need to rest our soldiers. We're going to hang out here for a month. You can stay around and watch us, but we're not going to bother you guys. We're going after Elida. I know during this, I think she has a talk with Talmanis about. I think that basically Talmanis is a stand-in for Matt. So Talmanis is like, we need money. I'm getting into the next chapter, by the way,
Yeah, go on.
I
which
was
is
going to ask
Killer
who
Calling.
Talmanis is.
Talmanis is okay. So Matt went on a mission and he left the band with the Rebel Hall, and Talmanis is leading the band in Matt's absence.
So basically, Matt has two deputies, one who's Kahanan, one who's a tier guy, and basically Talmans is one of those. So he's one of Matt's top deputies.
Yeah. Was the other guy, was he the one who died?
Yep.
He got killed by the Golem, that's right.
He did.
Nalessian, that's his name.
No, yeah. And he's so interesting that when you've heard it on
Too many
audio,
characters.
I would call him Talmains and Nalcian, and it's because you've heard it on the actual audio, so you have the right pronunciations. So I have to remind myself who you mean.
Yes. So
Even you can't keep track of all the characters.
Yeah, I can keep track of the characters, I just mispronounce them because I only read it in my head.
Oh, okay.
Go on, guys.
all right, so she talks to Talmanis and basically says, hey, stay the course. Do not align with this king of Merendy. Because he was planning on turning the Red Hand into a mercenary band because they needed money to basically stay as a force. And they were going to align with the king of Merendy, which was going to cause like a war and power struggle. Elaine is like, no, stay out of it. We need you to not start any conflicts over here. So she expresses that, and Talmanis says that he'll no longer be moving along with the Aes Sedai army. but that's about as far as that conversation goes with Tom Honest. Egwene, I know they leave. She leaves like the little because there's like a little party or something of nobles, and she leaves basically, and we go into the next chapter.
Yep.
19, the law. I love this chapter. It's pretty fun. So Egwene gathers all the sitters and everybody together after this gala, I guess, that they had, and this is where I guess she calls for a vote, right?
Yep.
Because now they're kind of locked into this path of Tarvalin. They need to kind of formalize it, and the vote that they call for is to was it to declare war on Elida?
Yep.
So Egwene had been plotting to get the sitters to vote in favor of this. There are a couple different reasons. Well, one of the things she sets the rumor mills going with the Red Aja and what they did with what's his name, Logain, and she gets people talking and tries to manipulate, and she does a fairly good job. So at the vote, I think she gets 10, and then she's like, oh no, I don't have enough votes. And then someone else pops up, and she gets the majority finally.
Yeah, because she doesn't need an absolute. She only needs a majority. But
Right.
And what she kind of implies is because they're going to tell her off. Like when they get
Right.
to their bit of the business, they're going to be able to expose that she should have relinquished power to the Hall over the Andorrans. And so, but the thing is, she gets her question in first. They declare war, and after that, she doesn't give a crap because she's remembered part of the lore that they have not. And so, like, they think, yeah, we'll just get this question out of the way, and then we'll get to the bit where we pull her across the coals. But they do the vote for the war first without realizing it's a big freaking deal. And this has happened in politics in the past. For example, when England made its first move to outlaw slavery, it was done with a stealth move, which the guy got through while most people weren't sitting in parliament, because a lot of our parliamentary leaders back then were slave owners, etc., and would have made a lot of money. And so he had a vote go through against basically unregistered traders that would allow people to stop those boats without saying, I'm trying to abolish slavery. And so that law ended up resulting in the abolition of the slave trade in Britain. But he only got it through. Wilberforce only got it through because he snuck it in, pretending it was something else. And that's what Egwene does here.
Well, at least you guys didn't go to war over it.
Yeah.
No,
we didn't have the political genius to accomplish that.
No.
Yeah, so another thing that happened that I didn't really mention from the earlier chapters is that both Ramonda and Lelaine approached Egwene, and they basically told her, you better choose me to speak for you at the meeting of the nobles.
And
she did neither.
Yep.
And of course, that ruffled some feathers. And she had to do this, and this is the checkmate that happens here at this particular point. So after they agree, like, yeah, we do need to declare formal war against Elida. It's like no big deal. And then once she gets enough votes, she then asks one of the sisters, okay, what is the law regarding the Amelin and declaring war? And then they find out that basically it gives her emergency powers
Yep.
that they did not really think about once they voted her
The,
in.
the key line is the hall must approve all declarations, all decrees relating to the war.
Right.
So if
And
she
I
can make a
bet,
decree related to the war, they have to okay it.
yes, and she can probably has enough political savvy to tie anything that she does in relation to the war.
And if
Yeah.
she doesn't, Swan does, and Swan's whispering in her ear.
Right. So this is what I meant by she had to keep her emotions in check. This being because there were some points where she had some interactions with Ramonda and Lelaine where she was on the verge of asserting her power,
Yeah.
but that would have messed some things up. And there were times where Ramonda and Lelaine will basically reiterate of how much of a puppet she is and how much of power she doesn't have
Yeah.
until this point. So this is where Egwene becomes no longer a puppet,
Yeah.
and I think basically that's when like their expressions in the hall were like just everyone had their jaws dropping and they're like, what did we just do?
Yeah. Because
But these are Aes Sedai,
she's
so
been
they
pretending, hasn't she?
yeah, she was pretending to be meek,
Yeah.
pretending to be
Well,
just like
what happened?
naive and witless.
Yeah.
And that's what
Mhm.
I meant by she had to keep her emotions in check because she was just insulted left and right, and she just had to keep it together until she got to this point. And this is where she won. She finally won of all of her hard work of pretending to be this meek, naive girl, and um,
It pays off.
it paid off. We knew
Yep.
that there was some type of scheme. It just wasn't apparent to us until this point.
It couldn't be though, because like we didn't know the law. Like there's no way we could guess that this was like a secret part of their law. Like Jordan, until he reveals it, we can't.
Well, we know Swan is probably the one that told her about it.
Yeah. Oh, for dang sure.
Yeah.
For dang sure.
That's why Swan, we know, was kind of a part of this plan, but we just didn't know what was going on.
Oh, for sure, this is Swan's plan, but Gwen pulled it off.
Well,
Yeah,
Swan is
yeah.
all about Egwene being the Armelin.
Yeah.
Like, she knows that if Egwene is the Armelin, Swan is basically the sitter. I'm sorry, not
The keeper,
keeper.
the power behind the throne. The
And we
advisor.
do, I know one of the things that happens, like after this meeting, before her declaration, is that Shuriam is upset
Yeah.
that, hey, like, how come you're not telling me what's going on? And Egwene's like, well, I can't really say. I'll tell you what you need to know, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then Shuriam's like, well, don't be surprised if I'm ousted as the keeper, and Ramonda and Lelaine is like the next keeper. And she's like,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Then because she gets her declaration through, they can't do jack squat.
Nope. So
But
you can say,
one of the
I
things-
could use a war reason to keep Shuriam as my
Yeah.
keeper.
But
Basically.
even though we didn't know Sheringham was black till now, we did know
Right.
that Sheringham tried to manipulate her at the beginning. Because at the beginning, when the Saladar group were together, it was Sheringham and her little cohort that were running things until and then they're the ones who tried to put her in place, and Sheringham was her keeper because the idea was, oh well, Sheringham will tell her what to do. And the Egwene fooled everybody. She played everybody off against everybody else, and Swan's influence here cannot be overstated. Like it's Swan who gets her through this without her powers, which shows that one of the reasons Swan was Amron's seat was not because she was super powerful in the power, even though that was obviously important. It was because she is a true blue, and her intelligence is at least as important as her ability with her gifts.
Right.
Definitely.
I'll tell you one thing. Spoilers.
We spoiled everything about this book already, so.
Yeah, I'll say that when Swan met her fate,
Yeah.
that it was the only part where I shed a tear in the book, reading the books.
Really?
Really.
I did not. Wow, that is cool.
Swan was basically my favorite Aes Sedai.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Like, I don't know. I don't know. She's just my favorite. Like, I like her more than Moraine.
Yeah.
This hour's about to end.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. So we could probably